start this webinar on basically a topic which is very much the topic of the day, I will say, which is how can we deal as microfinance professional and as microfinance institutions with crisis, and especially we take the example today of the Russia-Ukrainian crisis and the current situation there. And we look at the impact on Humo, one of Gojo partner. So I'm very happy to have today with us a couple of speakers that some of you may already know, both Taejun, the founder and CEO of Gojo, will also tell us how, from an investor perspective, from a holding company perspective, or we can deal with such a situation. And Firdavs, the CEO and also, I would say, founder of Humo, one of the leading microfinance institutions in Tajikistan. So this, just before I introduce the speakers in more detail, let me tell you that this is going to be a very interactive webinar. We have about 1 hour, which we'll spend in discussion. So I have a few introductory questions and points for both Firdavs and Taejun, but I will really seek you to, bring your own points, your own view, because we have about 60 people online and we'll have probably more in a few minutes. It's going to be difficult to have an open discussion, but don't hesitate to use the Q&A function to ask your question. The questions will be addressed as we speak in the duration of the call by the speakers. And again, we'll spend 1 hour mostly in discussion around this. So now let me right away introduce the key discussion point we discussed today. As you can see here, we'll discuss about the crisis itself. And this crisis has different name depending on where we are. In the West, I am in Europe, there is in Japan, I guess it's the same for many of you, or the audience in the West. This is very much called a war. In Russia, we know it's a special situation. It's presented as a special situation operation or a special operation, special military operation. Firdavs will tell us in Tajikistan how they qualify the crisis and how they name it. But we'll discuss this crisis and how this is seen in different parts of the world. We'll discuss Tajikistan, and I will ask Firdavs to remind us a bit the relationship between Tajikistan and Russia and the current geopolitical situation of Tajikistan. Then we'll discuss more specifically the crisis, its impact on the country, on Tajikistan, which is, it's not exactly, obviously, it's not Ukraine, that's not where it is happening, but what is the impact of the crisis on the country, on the people, on Humo specifically. And then we'll discuss the key measures taken by Humo as a company to deal with this crisis. And obviously we'll also talk about financial inclusion, the current situation in Tajikistan, and how this sector can be affected by the crisis, considering that there is a history of crisis and a few examples that can be used. So I'm just here to moderate. Most of the talk will be done by Taejun and Firdavs, and hopefully by you with your questions. Just a few words on me. I joined Gojo a couple of years ago after leading a group microfinance, mostly in Africa and China, Baobab, and I've been involved in microfinance and financial inclusion for about 20 years. Firdavs is not only the CEO and co-founder of Humo, but he's also a very leading force of Humo. He has led the transformation of Humo into a very tech-focused company with a lot of digital operation taking place with Humo Lab and a number of products and services that we had the opportunity to present in the webinar some time ago, but also as we discussed today the impact of the crisis. He may tell us the impact of the crisis on, I would say, the typical microfinance, micro-lending business, but also on the digital business. Sorry, Taejun is the founder of Gojo. He's founded about 8 years ago. He's a CEO, and before that he worked in private equity in Japan. He's also not only a social entrepreneur through Gojo, but also through an NGO he has launched, Living in Peace. He has launched in Japan. He's also a young global leader from the West. So let's start with Firdavs. Maybe Firdavs, where we can start is you can tell us a little more about Tajikistan itself. Tell our audience, maybe some people in our audience don't know much about your country, don't know much about its history, and don't know much about the relationship with Russia. And I think it's a good opportunity to start there. I will stop sharing, and maybe either you want to share the screen, or Rihanna, or you can speak without slides. It's up to you.
Okay, thank you. While Rihanna is sharing the screen, I'd like to tell you that Tajikistan originally was created in 1924 when Russia was very active on this region, and prior to this we were part of Turkestan, or currently it is Uzbekistan, and we were in the form of autonomous republic in 1924. Thanks to Russia, we became a separate republic. And since then, Russia did a lot in our countries. So in terms of creation of infrastructure, education, and etc. So during this USSR period, we had opposite migration, which we have now. So Russian people migrated from Russia to Tajikistan, and were much involved in development of the country. So in the next slide, you can see that number of population is almost 10 million, so 9.85 million. This is according to different sources, but official information was published by the end of 2020. So it was 9.5 million people. So according to other sources, during the year, it was increase of population, and now it is 9.8 million. So 72% of people live in rural area. And in terms of median age is almost 23 years, and diversification of population almost half. So about 50% of population are female. So internet penetration is increasing rapidly during last period. So during the year, it was increased, penetration was increased by 5% and reached 40%, but still 60% of population, they don't have, let's say, internet at their homes. So they have mobile connection, but they don't have internet at their homes. And around 4 million people using internet. So mobile connections are more than the number of population, just because of, as you can see, in all countries, people have several SIM cards and several types of, they use several mobile operators. So that's why we have such a big number. GDP in 2021 was almost $9 billion, so $8.7 billion, with 9.5% annual growth. And inflation rate during the year was 80%, and target for this year, for 2020, by National Bank was at 6%, but now I think everything will change just because of the situation related to Ukraine and sanctions against Russia. So, and GDP per capita is almost $1,000. It increased. Last year it was $850,000. Now it is 32. And poverty rate, this information unfortunately very old, but it decreased. While we're talking about this situation with Ukraine and Russia and sanctions against Russia, and this topic is very important for us just because of we are very dependent from remittances which flows from Russia. According to we don't have official information on money remittances, on money transfer, but according to Russian information, during 2021, almost $2 billion were sent via payment systems. By payment system, we mean that those remittances were sent without opening banking account. And now a share of peer-to-peer transfers or card-to-card transfers are increasing, and if we'll suppose that in 2021 it was about 40%, with this card-to-card transfers, money remittances reached $3 billion during 2021. And if you compare this amount to our GDP, so money remittances covers 33%, almost 34% of our GDP. And next slide, we can see information about financial sector. So currently there are 33 financial institutions in Tajikistan, including 14 banks, 18. So we have three types of microfinance institutions. First is microcredit deposit organization, which can perform almost all banking operations. We have microcredit organizations, which provide just micro loans, but they create in the form of commercial entity. And also we have non-commercial microcredit funds. So including 18 microcredit deposit organization, 4 microcredit organization, 27 microcredit funds. This number is total number of financial institutions is 33, and it is decreasing year by year just because of NBT moves from the quantity to quality, and it improves the analysis of microfinance institutions, and those microfinance institutions or banks which were not able to suffer with crises, they were liquidated. Total assets of the financial sector almost $2 billion, and active loan portfolio is $1 billion. So in these 4 diagrams, you can see share of Humo in terms of assets, loan portfolio, deposits, and capital. So mostly we are concentrated in loan portfolio. We are in the 5th place in the country among banks and other microfinance institutions with 5.5 share of portfolio. So it was as of end of 2021. And unfortunately, currently we don't have information about sector as of first quarter of 2022. So this is in short information about financial market and about Humo. So we can discuss those topics which were raised by Arnaud, the history of relationship between Russia and Tajikistan. If there are no any questions regarding the slides.
Thank you very much, Firdavs. Look, we have already a few questions, but before we go into the question, I would like to hear from you about, how is this situation described in Tajikistan? We discussed that quickly in my introduction, but for Tajik people, for Tajik government, are we talking? Do we see this situation as a war, an aggression of Russia into Ukraine? Is it or is it perceived in the country?
I know regarding government, I cannot say anything just because of there were no official information about this. So I think the government did not express their opinion yet. Maybe they expressed it, but it was not published officially. So I don't have information regarding this. Regarding population, so you know, population is divided into two sides: those who are support Ukraine, and those who understand why Russia did it. So it depends from the information which appeared in Tajikistan. So those who are very active in Facebook or in Instagram or in other social media, they have a lot of information which are prepared by Ukraine and Western countries. Some information are true, some, but a lot of fakes also present. And those people are supporting Ukraine. People who watch television, and mostly in Tajikistan, everybody watch Russian television. Of course, we have Euronews, we have some other channels, but mostly population watch Russian television. And from Russian side, there is another type of information, and they are saying that this is not actual war, this is special military operation, which was started to protect Russian people in Donbass. That's because according to Russian government, they had information that at the end of February or beginning of March, it was a plan of Ukrainian government to attack Donbass. So they did it like they did prevention measures. So there are two types of information, and I think that we should read and watch both type in order to understand. So like we are saying, the truth is in the middle. So we need to check both of information. So, but yes, there are a lot of fakes on the both sides also.
Thank you, Firdavs. Maybe before, we have already a lot of questions coming, and I would ask you those questions in a minute. But before we get into this, maybe Taejun, you can tell us also your view on how is this crisis described in Japan, in the media, in the public, at the government level. Is this seen as a Russia war and aggression, and is Russia painted as the guilty country, or is it described? And what does the population think?
Yeah, thank you. Overall, I think in Japan, in mainstream media, media basically is criticizing this Russian invasion. Few people and some media, not so mainstream, they say also that it's still understandable. Actually, when the war began, so recently, I think the overall opinion began to change, and it's leaning toward supporting Ukrainian people more emotionally. But soon after the war began, there were some articles even in the mainstream media explaining why the Russia started this war, explaining this the NATO's continuous expansion. So that is the overall situation. It used to be more nuanced, but it's getting more monotonous these days.
Thank you very much. I think we have a bit the same probably in Europe. Maybe let me move to some of the questions we are getting from the public. Firdavs, I have a few questions about. Well, first to start with the high-level macro context. Can you tell us a little more about what was the GDP in Tajikistan last year? What is the GDP plan for this year? And are there already existing forecasts from either Asian Development Bank or IMF of impact of this crisis on the GDP?
As I mentioned in my presentation, last year GDP growth was 9.8%, and according to, as I remember, for this year, target was at least the growth, having growth of by 7%. Now I think maybe national bank and government will reconsider these plans, just because of everybody expects that turnover will decrease, and even inflation rate, which was targeted by 6%, will also increase. So we expect that inflation rate for this year will be from 15 up to 20%. So if last year GDP was about $9 billion for this year, it is currently unpredictable, just because of to be honestly, we expected that March and April till now we will have more impact of crisis of sanctions related to Tajikistan, but currently everything is not so dramatic as we considered, as we expected. So I think by mid of May or by end of May, it will be more clear situation, just because of currently there are a lot of uncertainties. So we need to wait what will happen during May.
And so a separate topic, but still around the impact on Tajikistan. There will be, you mentioned it, a lot of impact on remittances. Is this impact affecting Humo, and in which way it will affect Humo? Do you expect big performance? I mean, will it impact your performance? And more broadly, by the way, besides the remittances impact, are there consequences on the money flow between Tajikistan and external markets? Especially, we know that Russian many banks have been banned or out of SWIFT or have constraints. So are there limitations to receive and transfer USD or different currency in Tajikistan? And or is the country going to deal with that? And or are you going to deal with that?
Regarding remittances, when this situation started, when conflict started in Ukraine, we noticed that remittances immediately decreased by 80%. And when we asked our competitors, partners, they said that also the remittances decreased from 60 by 80%. And it was some thoughts about this. So, and we had some hypothesis, and we confirmed this hypothesis just because of it was related to devaluation of Russian ruble again Tajik somoni and USD. If you remember, Russian ruble devaluated and reached 120 rubles against dollars. And by that time, many migrants, they kept their money and they refused from sending to Tajikistan. They expected that situation will change, and it was a right decision. And when Russian ruble was started recovering, we noticed that level of remittances also started increasing. So currently, we expect that money remittances will decrease in if you'll calculate in dollar value, just because of this devaluation, and in Russian ruble decrease is not so much. And in other problems that we noticed, that due to the problems related to NBT, Central Bank of Russia, which they took a lot of measures, including hard controlling of foreign currency operations. They put a lot of restrictions. Cash dollars in Russian ruble was exchange rate of cash dollars was much higher than non-cash dollars in the stock market, and we noticed that level of remittances in through our systems and in other banks increased rapidly. And when we started analyzing, it appears that people sending Russian ruble to Tajikistan, they converting it to cash dollars, they transferring cash dollars to Russia, and they doing such revolving. So, and I'm afraid that because of this situation, we can lose real statistic of money remittances just because of it was flow of USD cash from Tajikistan to Russia.
Thank you, Firdavs. I have another question, which is also obviously related on the impact of this conflict, and the question is actually coming from someone who can probably lend money to you, and it's about the impact on credit quality, expected impact on credit quality, impact on funding, and hedging. What kind of impact did you see so
far? Credit quality, funding, and third one. Can you repeat, please?
Hedging cost.
Hedging. Okay. So regarding impact on credit quality, we closed March with 0.43% of par 30, but we noticed that in April some delinquent loans are increasing. So we expect that in April par 30 can be might increase by 0.5%. So, and we expect that it will par 30 will reach almost 1% in our company. And we took a lot of measures to manage this situation, but we can talk about this later. Regarding funding, this is very actual problem now. Not problem, but issue which we have to discuss, just because of during this period, February and March, we had negotiations with several creditors, MIVs, and when this situation happened, when NBT devaluated Tajik somali by 15% at once, hedging company was not announcing hedging quotes for Tajikistan during some period. And when they announced, we noticed that hedging costs increased. First, they increased by about 8%. After that, they decreased by 6%. We did one hedge for $1 million. After that, they increased again by 3%. So if you compare the situation prior to this conflict and after this, hedging costs, according to our information, increased by 6%, which is still high for our situation. And regarding credits, now we are continuing negotiation with our creditors. We are planning to receive loans in April and in May, but with higher rate. So this is current such situation. Hope that hedging costs will decrease.
Thank you very much for that. Another question on the impact that you can see on your, if you see any impact, or that you are forecasting on the product line. And so there are a few specific questions. One is, do you see any change in the, let's say, seasonality for the loans? Do you think that this crisis or this war would change the way clients ask for loans and the specific seasonality? And do you already, by the way, did you already have in the past specific seasonality for the loans? And would this crisis impact it? And are you forecasting an impact on the business plan for 22, especially at the level of the loans demand? Are you expecting less loan demand, more loan demand, and what kind of impact are you expecting on your business plan?
So regarding forecasting, of course, it will affect our forecast. So we plan to increase our active portfolio by 37% this year. During January and February, we had very good growth, so about 5%. And in March, just because of at the end of February, we prepared anti-crisis plan and applied this anti-crisis measures. Active portfolio in March was increased just by 7 million somoni, so it is about $500, which is very low. There are two reasons for this. First reason is that those funding which we expected during this period, we didn't receive those funding, so creditors postponed their decision. Another reason is related to those measures which we taken. So we put a lot of restrictions, limits. We stopped providing funds to specific risky directions. And just because of these two factors, it can affect our growth rate. But regarding seasonality, usually this period is season for agricultural lending. So this is now we have planting season, and in our case it was not affected. So we didn't stop providing funds for agriculture sector, but we put some limits for this. And what can be what drivers could bring back reaching our plans, just because of again we are coming back to seasonality question. The main season of loan disbursements in our company starts from September till December, so we have all chances to be more closer to our target. But during this period, April, May, and June, we consider that growth rate will be limited. Even if we will receive necessary funds, we will not disburse. For example, we stop disbursement of SME loans, we stop disbursement loans in foreign currency, and we put limits. So during April, May, June, we will continue keeping those measures. We'll check what will happen in Russia, sanctions against Russia, how remittances will continue flow to Tajikistan, and how economy will the situation of economy will be in Tajikistan. So situation of economy can be monitored easily. So just by visiting markets, you can understand whether situation good or no. So did I miss something?
No, I think on this you have been complete. There was also a question about talking about product. Have you two specific questions? One is, have you looked at specific product you could develop, I would say, in the context of this crisis, a product that could be useful to clients and that could be developed in the context of this crisis? And there was a separate question on a specific type of product, which are the deposit product. Did you see any impact on your deposit portfolio? Any, for instance, accelerated dollarization of the portfolio or early withdrawal? Do you see people withdraw money at some point? What is the behavior of clients on deposits on the deposit side?
Okay, regarding product which can be on which we can be more put more focus. First of all, as I mentioned, agricultural sector will continue. growing, and we do not see much risks except risk related to some floats or some force majeure situation, just because of prices for products are increasing, and we can be sure that agricultural sector will be stable. In other products which can be considered, and we saw it during previous crisis, some small consumer loans to employees who work in government structures. So usually business during crisis, they reduce employees in order to decrease operating costs, but government structures, they do not do this. So some consumer and overdraft products can be still, of course, within certain limits provided. Regarding deposits, at the beginning, from at the end of February and first week of March, we noticed that our deposit portfolio decreased by almost $500,000, and we put we send message to all branches that if somebody will come to withdraw their deposits, they have to provide deposits very fast, instantly, just because of this is a question of reputation, and some people withdraw their deposits in so many to make some conversion to US dollars, just because of they afraid that the dollar will increase. Others checked whether we are okay or no, whether we will be able to return their deposits, and they returned back to company. And in general, from February 24 till now, our deposit portfolio increased by almost $200,000. So now we are increasing our deposit portfolio.
Thank you very much, Firdavs. We have many questions, so you are very successful, I have to say. We have more questions on this. It's still around remittances, and you have answered partly those questions, but let me ask a very specific question, which is around there was some sanctions announced on Sberbank at the beginning of the month, April 6th. And what is your position, Humo position, regarding the remittances operation performed via this bank? Do you have specific plan to tackle this? By the way, was this bank a very important part of your own remittances operation? And there is a separate and related question still around remittances, is if you can comment the impact of the drop of remittances on your FX position management, or are you going to deal with this?
Okay, prior discussion this, I forgot another question which was asked previously, related sanctions and limits on SWIFT and how it affected us and what we are doing on this direction. So we are currently in the process of opening a correspondent account in Kazakhstan and in Georgia. Also, we are negotiating with South Korea. So regarding Kazakhstan and Georgia, we provided all documents, and procedure already started. And we work, regarding Russia, we work closely only with one bank, Transcapital Bank, which is not under sanctions. And in case if SWIFT will be closed, I don't believe to this, but in case if SWIFT will be closed totally for all banks in Russia, we connected to client application of Transcapital Bank, so we can continue our operations until when we will activate our correspondent accounts in Kazakhstan and in Georgia. Regarding Sberbank, with Sberbank, we don't have any transactions, but we serve customers who send remittances via Sberbank. You know, as I mentioned, now card-to-card transactions, card-to-card money remittances are increasing, and now we, when Western Union closed the operations in Russia, now about 80% of remittances are coming from cards, from Russian cards to Tajik cards, and from these card transactions, according to our information, 80% of card holders are migrants who received cards from Sberbank. Why? Just because of Sberbank have very broad offices, so they're present in all cities and regions, even in districts and in villages, and it is more easy to our migrants to receive cards from Sberbank if you compare with other banks. And for example, there is other banks like Tinkoff. Tinkoff usually they are branchless. They're doing branchless banking like Neobank, and they usually send cards via their agents or via post. But you know, our migrants, they don't have permanent address to receive such cards. That's why if Tajikistan will close money remittances with Sberbank, it means that I shared information, 33%, almost 34% of GDP are remittances. So it will bring bad effect to Tajikistan economy. That's why so we are planning to organize some calls with our creditors who are asking regarding our plans to working with Sberbank. We are not working with Sberbank, but we need to serve such remittances. We will talk with them. We would like to understand their position, and after that, we will make necessary decisions.
Okay, still on remittances, a lot of questions on remittances, and then I will move to other type of questions. There is this question which is quite interesting, and I'm not sure if you know of that, but did you see in the market, did you see, you know, because of what's happening on the remittances side, did you see a shift of money transfer moving from formal remittances going through banks and institutions like you to informal scheme, such as the type of, you know, Avala scheme that exists in many countries where you get basically informal remittances. Are you seeing this? Are you aware of this, or you're not aware of this?
You know, there was some rumors that at the end of February, beginning of March, such remittances like Hawala became popular, but it was just rumors, and we need to understand when it happened. It happened in those situations when exchange rate for money remittances is not in line with market exchange rate. In this case, if migrants will send remittances through banks, it will be not like they can lose money. So in such situation, Hawala works. But now the exchange rate of during some period, even exchange rate of NBT was for dollars was higher than market rate. And in such situation, there is no reason to use Hawala. So currently, we don't have any information that there is unofficial money remittances, except those operations which are related to transferring USD cash to Russia. So just because of currently, we also have restriction to send USD cash outside of country, but we have some information that it is doing some people doing this unofficially through Kyrgyz border and etc.
Okay, look, I have a couple of last questions for you, and then I have a question for Taejun, and I think we'll be soon closing as we have around 10 minutes left. So the couple of questions that I have for you is one, two more, I would say, broader questions outside of the remittances issues that we discussed. One is, what if you were to see and to list, let's say, the 3 top challenge for Humo in this situation, between, I don't know, bad debt increase, funding issue, customer acquisition, how would you rate the big challenges? And do you have a plan to cope with those challenges? Are you confident you can cope with those challenges? Also, in light of previous challenge you had to face in similar crises? That's question one. Question two is much broader and quite interesting, is about your loan portfolio. There's a question about whether you have in your loan portfolio sustainable decarbonizing green loans or blue loan. And basically, do you do loans to support, environment-friendly activity? And if you have such categories of loan, how important is it? Is it a sector where you see a lot of potential development? And if you don't have, do you intend to develop those type of loans?
Yeah. Okay. Regarding first question, 3 big challenges. During 17 years of our operations, we passed through 4 crises. So first crisis was related to situation in US in 2007, 2008. Second crisis was in 2014 against US announced sanctions against Russia, and it was very problem situation for us. Third crisis was related to pandemic situation, and now crisis number 4, which we are going through. And during all this period, we see the same situation. When crisis starts, our partners, creditors, stopping their operations, stopping their support. And during such periods, we are starting thinking, all our partners, all our creditors, they love to talk about social impact, about ESG and implementation and other things. But during crisis, you can understand that they are mostly interested in business. So they are mostly interested in profit. And during such period, we understand that there are, of course, several partners who support us during such period, just because of they know that crisis will end, and we have experience on managing crisis. So let's say Tajikistan, after independence, we started with civil war. After that was default in Russia in 1998, and this crisis. So we live in permanent crisis situation, and we have like immunity against such crises. And when our partners are saying that let's stop funding, let's wait how situation will end. So when this situation will end, what will happen? We are not afraid of crises. We are not afraid of sanctions. We are sure that we will manage it. But in case if our creditors will not support us, it will bring much more effects than crisis. They are damaging us more than crisis damage company. So this is first big issue. Another issue related to pricing, hedging. So unfortunately, we have just one hedging company who works in Tajikistan. Actually 2, but let's say one, TCX and MFX, they are related parties. And we don't have other options except some options which are provided by Symbiotics and Bluechart. They found alternative sources. And high hedging cost is very crucial for us, just because of if we'll take this such price and we'll disburse with higher interest rate, it means that it will bring more expenses to our customers. This is second problem, and third problem is sanctions is announced by US, and other countries like UK and European countries are following US. And when they are requesting us to join the sanctions and to implement all these requirements, come on, you see, we should think about our economy, about the economy of Tajikistan, or about the economy of US. So I think that Tajikistan cannot make any influence on US economy. So, and I think that prior requesting us to implement some restrictions and sanctions, we should talk, we should understand what we're doing. So now currently we have this three big challenges. So crisis is not challenge, creditors making challenge for us, except those who are supporting us like Symbiotics, EBRD, Blue Chart, KFW. Those are Grameen Credit Agricole. So I hope that they will continue supporting us. Regarding green financing and environment, so we have very big experience on this, and we started implementing of green financing and environmental projects with our partners, with creditors from 2016, and we created special unit to manage it, to monitor this, and we have very good experience on this. Recently, we signed loan agreement on green financing with EBRD, which is supported by European Union and Korean government. So for $4 million. So first $2 million will be received by first tranche in the coming months, and others will be received by the end of this year. And but the main problem is that just Humo or just other banks or MFIs cannot change situation by themselves. So government should be much involved in this. So the population should understand benefits of using such technologies like drop irrigation system, like sun collectors, and etc. So I think that it should be a very complicated job done by all parties. But anyway, we are doing very good. So we received several awards on green financing and ecological projects. So we are okay with this.
Thank you very much, Firdavs. So thank you very much to all of you. I think there was a lot of questions. There are still a lot of questions being asked to Firdavs, but we have to conclude in the next 3 or 4 minutes. So let me just say something before I hand over to Taejun with a question to conclude. We will, so many of you ask if we can share the slides. We prepare some slides that will post, and the team will share with you where you can find it. But before we conclude, I have this question to Taejun about Gojo. There were a couple of questions about how Gojo, as an investment company and a holding company, is considering his investment in Tajikistan first and in Humo with this crisis. Are we reconsidering whether Tajikistan and Humo was the right choice potentially? And then beyond this, is this type of investment, is this type of situation affecting us in the way we were considering potential expansion in Central Asia? So how does Gojo, as a shareholder and a partner, see his position?
Right. Yeah, and thank you very much, Firdavs, again for your time. So yes, it's the overall situation is concerning, but as you do business in developing nations, it happens almost every year. So last year we saw a coup, the coup in Myanmar, and this year the Ukraine war happened, and some other companies are influenced. And yesterday, Sri Lankan Central Bank, it's partly related to this the crisis, because the oil prices went up, and Sri Lankan government now is not going to able to repay the national debt. So it happens overall. It is concerning, but we don't have any regret over our decision, and we believe in the long-term thing. So things happen, and in the maybe course in the next several years or a decade, similar thing could happen because of the global geopolitical power shift, which is undergoing. That said, I think I'm very optimistic about the future. If you look at all the developing nations, despite all the turmoils, if you look at the long-term GDP growth, the growth will happen for many countries in the long run. So we are quite optimistic, and that does not mean that we are ignorant of the current challenges and the situation. We've been discussing with Firdavs to how to address the challenge and how to deal with the situation. There is no intention for us to leave or exit from the country just because of the difficult economic situation, for two reasons. Number one, if you leave because of the difficulty, you will never be able to come back. People would remember that you escaped from the difficulty. And trust, long-term loyalty matter a lot for this kind of business. And number two, because the situation is very difficult, there is more need and a demand for financial inclusion. Many people are struggling with day-to-day cash management and so forth. And this is a very important time for us to serve the clients better. So we keep supporting Humo, and we keep supporting Humo's the expansion further. Thank you.
Thank you, Taejun. Thank you, Firdavs. So we are closing now. Thank you very much for all of you that have attended up to now. And we'll follow up by email, probably to ask more about what you like. We'll send you a survey, and we'll also share with you more information about what we presented. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. Bye-bye.